The bustling streets of Manhattan were no stranger to chaos, but today felt different. A sharp December wind howled through the towering skyscrapers, chilling everyone to the bone. Among the hurried crowd, a man, clad in a tattered coat and worn-out shoes, stumbled to the ground. His face was pale, his hands trembling as he clutched his chest. People paused, their gazes lingering for a moment before moving on. Phones were out, capturing the spectacle, but no one stepped forward to help. A black limousine rolled to a stop nearby, unnoticed at first. From it emerged Barron Trump, his tall frame striking against the bleak city backdrop. Known for his composed demeanor and luxurious lifestyle, no one expected him to notice, let alone care. But he did. Barron's sharp blue eyes scanned the man, his face flickering with something that resembled fear, concern. He crouched beside the man, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Call 911, he barked at his driver, his voice steady yet urgent. The man's cracked lips moved, barely audible. "Help me?" Barron's expression softened. "I've got you." The crowd grew, whispers swirling. Why was the billionaire heir helping a nobody? No one could have predicted what came next. Paramedics arrived within minutes, loading the frail man onto a stretcher. As they wheeled him away, something caught Barron's eye. A crumpled piece of paper slipping from the man's pocket. Without hesitation, Barron picked up. It was a note, scrawled in shaky handwriting. The words stopped him cold. "To anyone who finds this, I'm sorry I failed. Please take care of my daughter. Her name is Lily." Barron's heart thudded in his chest. A million questions raced through his mind. Who was this man? Where was Lily? Why did this feel personal? He slipped the note into his pocket, his mind made up. He wasn't going to let this man's plea go unanswered. "Follow the ambulance," he instructed his driver. As the car eased back into traffic, Barron gazed out the window, his mind restless. For years, the world saw him as nothing more than the son of a billionaire, a figurehead of privilege. But today, something stirred in him. This wasn't about wealth or fame. It was about doing the right thing. He had no idea that this choice would change his life forever. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and desperation. Barron sat stiffly in the waiting room, ignoring the curious stares from nurses and patients alike. He wasn't here to impress anyone. When the doctor finally emerged, Barron was on his feet instantly. "How is he?" "Stable. For now," the doctor replied. "But he's malnourished and suffering from exhaustion." "Do you know him?" Barron hesitated. "Not really, but I found this." He handed over the note. The doctor frowned. "His daughter?" "He hasn't mentioned a daughter." "Can I see him?" Barron asked. The doctor nodded. As Barron stepped into the dimly lit room, he felt a pang in his chest. The man looked so fragile, barely clinging to life. Suddenly, the man stirred. His eyes fluttered open, focusing weakly on Barron. "Lily," he rasped. "Where is she?" Barron asked gently. "Oh, Malone." Tears leaked from the man's eyes. "Promise me, you'll find her." Barron leaned in, his voice firm. "I promise." Barron left the hospital with a heavy heart and a mission. He couldn't shake the man's pleading eyes, or the desperation in his voice. Who is Lily? Was she safe? Using the man's ID, Barron tracked down his address, a rundown apartment in a forgotten corner of the city. The elevator groaned as it carried him to the 4th floor. He knocked on the peeling door, his pulse racing. A small voice answered. "Who is it?" Barron's heart clenched. "I'm here to help." The door creaked open, revealing a little girl, no older than 6. Her eyes were wide and fearful, her face smudged with dirt. She clutched a stuffed bunny to her chest, its ear nearly torn off. "Are you Lily?" Barron asked softly. She nodded, her lip trembling. "Where's Daddy?" Barron crouched to her level, his voice gentle. "He's in the hospital, but he's going to be okay. Can I come in?" Lily hesitated before stepping aside. As Barron entered the tiny apartment, the weight of what he'd taken on began to sink in. The place was cold and bare, with barely any food or furniture. He swallowed hard. This wasn't just about finding Lily. It was about saving her. Barron sat on the threadbare couch as Lily watched him cautiously from across the room. She didn't say much, but her big, brown eyes spoke volumes. She was scared, hungry, and alone. "Do you like pizza?" Barron asked, breaking the silence. Her eyes lit up, but she quickly looked down, as if afraid to hope. "Daddy says we can't afford it." "Well, today's special," Barron said with a small smile. "Let's get pizza." For the first time, Lily smiled. A small, shy curve of her lips. Barron's chest tightened. How long had it been since this little girl had felt happy? The pizza arrived quickly, and they ate on the floor, laughing as Lily wiped sauce from her chin. For a moment, the bleakness of the apartment melted away, replaced by warmth and light. After dinner, Barron tucked Lily into bed, promising her he'd stay nearby. As she drifted off, clutching her bunny, Barron made a silent vow. This wasn't temporary. He wasn't going to walk away after one act of kindness. He was going to fight for Lily, for her father, and for a life they both deserved. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger, something darker, was yet to come. The night was cold, and Barron could hear the wind rattling the windows of Lily's tiny apartment. He sat on the worn-out couch, unable to sleep. Every creak of the old building felt loud in the stillness, but his thoughts were louder. His phone buzzed on the coffee table, breaking the silence. He hesitated before picking it up. "Barron," the voice on the other end said. It was his father. "What's going on? You didn't come home tonight." "I found something important," Barron replied quietly, not wanting to wake Lily. His father paused. "What kind of important?" "I'll explain later," Barron said, his tone firm. "But I need to stay here." He ended the call before more questions could come. He wasn't sure how to explain what had happened. Not yet. Barron looked toward Lily's room. The note, her tear-filled eyes, and her fragile hope had all imprinted on him. He had everything, yet this little girl had nothing. As he sat there, a quiet determination took hold. He didn't just want to help. He had to. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something he was missing. Something that could change everything. The next morning, Barron decided to visit Lily's father at the hospital. He wanted to tell him Lily was safe, but as he walked into the room, he froze. A woman in a dark coat stood by the bed, her back to him. She held a clipboard and was speaking softly to the unconscious man. "Who are you?" Barron asked, his voice steady but curious. The woman turned, startled. Her eyes narrowed as she took him in. "I could ask you the same thing," she replied. "I'm a friend," Barron said, his tone cautious. The woman sighed. "I'm a social worker. This man is in bad shape, and I've been trying to figure out if he has any family who can take care of his daughter." Barron's stomach churned. "Lily is fine. She's with me." The social worker raised an eyebrow. "With you? Who are you exactly?" Barron hesitated, knowing his name would raise questions. "Someone who cares." The woman didn't look convinced. "Caring isn't enough. Lily needs stability, and her father. He might not recover." Barron clenched his fists. He wasn't going to let Lily end up lost in the system. But how could he prove he was what she needed? Back at the apartment, Barron sat with Lily on the floor, flipping through an old photo album he'd found tucked in a corner. The pictures were faded, but full of life. A younger version of her father smiling proudly, a baby Lily in his arms. "That's Mommy," Lily whispered, pointing to a woman in one of the photos. Barron looked closer. The woman had kind eyes and a warm smile. "Where is she now?" he asked gently. Lily's face fell. "She went to heaven," she said softly. Barron's heart ached. This little girl had already endured so much. He turned another page and found something strange. There was a group photo with Lily's father and some men in uniforms. They looked serious, almost scared. "Who are they?" Barron asked. Lily shrugged. "Daddy doesn't talk about them." Barron frowned. There was a story here. One that Lily's father had kept hidden. And somehow, Barron knew it was tied to why this family was struggling so much. He glanced at Lily, her small hands clutching her stuffed bunny. No matter what the truth was, he had to protect her. Later that night, as Barron cleaned up the apartment, there was a knock at the door. He opened it cautiously, and a tall man in a leather jacket stood on the other side. "Can I help you?" Barron asked, his voice firm. The man smirked. "I'm looking for Lily's dad. He owes me." Barron's stomach dropped. "He's not here." The man stepped closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "Well, when you see him, tell him time's up. No more hiding." Barron's fists clenched. "Leave." The man chuckled darkly before walking away, his footsteps echoing down the hall. Barron shut the door, his heart racing. Who was that man? What kind of trouble was Lily's father in? He turned to see Lily watching from a hallway, her eyes wide with fear. "Who was that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "No one important," Barron lied, forcing a smile. "You don't need to worry." But inside he was anything but calm. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed wasn't pretty. Barron knew he couldn't wait for answers. He had to figure out what kind of danger Lily and her father were in, and fast. The next day, he returned to the hospital and confronted the social worker. "I need to know everything about Lily's dad." The woman sighed. "There's not much to tell. He's a single father who struggled for years." "But..." She hesitated. "But what?" Barron pressed. She leaned in, her voice low. "I found some old records. He used to work for a private contractor overseas. Something happened, and he disappeared for a while. When he came back, he was a different man." Barron's chest tightened. This wasn't just about money or bad luck. This was bigger. Something dangerous. As he left the hospital, Barron made a decision. He would protect Lily, no matter what it took, even if it meant putting himself in harm's way. He didn't know where this path would lead, but he knew one thing. He wasn't turning back. What Barron didn't realize was that his next move would put him face to face with a secret that could destroy everything. Barron spent the next day combing through records with the help of his family's private investigator. He didn't know what he was looking for, but he trusted his instincts. Finally, a name caught his eye: Ethan Clark. It was Lily's father's name, listed in a classified file about a covert operation overseas. Barron's heart pounded as he read on. Ethan had been part of a rescue mission gone wrong. The file hinted at betrayal, and a debt unpaid. His disappearance was involuntary. Ethan had been silenced, left to fend for himself after exposing corruption in his unit. Barron leaned back, the weight of the discovery crushing him. The man wasn't just a struggling father. He was a hero who had risked everything. But why was he being hunted now? A knock at the door broke his thoughts. It was the investigator, his face pale. "Barron, I've uncovered something else. That man who came to the apartment, he's not just a debt collector. He's connected to people who want Ethan dead." Barron's mind raced. Protecting Lily and Ethan was no longer just about kindness. It was about survival. And Barron had no idea how far he'd have to go. Fearing for Lily's safety, Barron acted fast. He had his driver pack up her belongings and take her to one of the Trump family's lesser-known properties, a secluded cabin in the woods. The drive was silent, Lily clutching her bunny as she stared out the window. "Are we running away?" she finally asked. Barron glanced at her through the rear-view mirror. "No, we're staying safe." When they arrived, the cabin was warm and cozy, a stark contrast to Lily's tiny apartment. She looked around, her eyes wide. "Is this all for us?" "For now," Barron said with a soft smile. "Until we figure things out." Lily nodded, but the weight of uncertainty lingered in the air. That night, as Lily slept, Barron sat by the fire, scrolling through more files about Ethan. Every detail painted a picture of a man who had been abandoned by the system he served. Barron made a vow. He wasn't just going to protect Ethan and Lily, he was going to expose the truth. But as the wind howled outside, Barron couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. Barron's unease grew over the next few days. He noticed small things: footsteps outside, shadows moving between the trees. He didn't tell Lily, not wanting to scare her, but he knew they weren't alone. One night, as he sat by the window, his phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "We know where you are. Walk away before it's too late." Barron's jaw tightened. Whoever was after Ethan wasn't playing games. The next morning, he called the investigator. "I need to meet with someone who can explain what's going on. Someone who knows the truth." The investigator hesitated. "There's one man. He served with Ethan, but he's in hiding, too. Meeting him won't be easy." "I'll do whatever it takes," Barron said. Before leaving, Barron knelt by Lily's bed. She was coloring quietly, her bunny by her side. "I'll be back soon," he promised. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice small. "To help your dad," Barron said. Lily nodded, trusting him completely. As Barron stepped out into the cold, he felt the weight of her trust. He couldn't fail her. The investigator led Barron to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Inside, a man with a weathered face and wary eyes waited. "Barron Trump," the man said, his tone skeptical. "Didn't expect someone like you to get involved in this mess." "I'm here for Ethan," Barron replied. "Tell me what happened to him." The man sighed, rubbing his temples. "Ethan was the best of us. But he saw something he wasn't supposed to. Corruption at the highest levels. When he tried to report it, they turned on him, framed him, left him out to dry." Barron frowned. "And now they're trying to kill him." The man nodded. "He knows too much. And anyone helping him. They'll go after you too." Barron's chest tightened. He had walked into something far bigger than he imagined. "What can I do?" he asked. The man handed him a flash drive. "Expose them. This says everything Ethan risked his life for. But once you do, there's no going back." Barron slipped the drive into his pocket. For Lily, for Ethan, he was ready. As Barron drove back to the cabin, the weight of the flash drive pressed on him like a physical burden. He had the evidence, but releasing it would mean putting himself and Lily in even greater danger. When he arrived, the cabin was eerily quiet. "Lily," he called, panic rising. He found her sitting by the window, staring at the woods. "There was a man outside," she whispered. Barron's heart sank. "Did he see you?" Lily shook her head. "I don't think so." Barron pulled her into a hug, his mind racing. He couldn't wait any longer. The people hunting Ethan wouldn't stop until they had what they wanted, or destroyed everything in their path. That night, as Lily slept, Barron uploaded the files from the flash drive to a secure server. He sent copies to trusted journalists, knowing the information would blow open a scandal that could topple powerful people. When it was done, he leaned back, exhausted but resolute. He had made his choice. But as dawn broke, headlights appeared in the distance. Barron's stomach turned. They were coming. And this time, they weren't leaving empty-handed. The headlights stopped just beyond the tree line. Barron's heart pounded as he peeked out the window. 3 men stepped out, their shadows stretching in the dawn's faint light. He turned to Lily, still asleep, on the couch. He couldn't let her see this. He gently shook her awake. "Lily, we're going to play a game. Hide and seek, okay?" Her sleepy eyes widened. "Now." "Yes. But this time, you have to win. Hide in the secret spot we found in the closet. And don't come out until I say." Lily nodded, clutching her bunny, as she ran to hide. Barron braced himself as the men approached the door. Their pounding echoed through the small cabin. He opened the door, standing tall despite his fear. "What do you want?" One man smirked. "You've been busy, haven't you? Hand over the files, and maybe we'll let you and the girl walk away." Barron's pulse raced, but his voice was steady. "I don't have them anymore." The man's expression darkened. "Wrong answer." The door slammed open, and chaos erupted. The men pushed their way inside, but Barron was ready. He grabbed a heavy lamp and swung it at the first intruder, knocking him to the ground. "Wrong move, kid." One of them growled, lunging at him. Barron dodged, his adrenaline surging. He had no formal training, but desperation fueled him. This wasn't about him. It was about Lily. One of the men spotted her small backpack on the floor. "The girl's here," he sneered. "No." "She's not," Barron shouted, throwing himself at the man. They crashed into the coffee table, splintering it into pieces. "Get off me," the man snarled, shoving Barron aside. But Barron wouldn't give up. He grabbed a broken table leg and swung again, buying precious seconds. Suddenly, headlights appeared outside. A horn blared. The men froze. Barron's heart leapt. It was his investigator, along with 2 uniformed officers. "Drop your weapons," one of the officers shouted, storming inside. The men hesitated, then slowly raised their hands. Barron slumped against the wall, his breath ragged. It was over, or so he thought, as the men were led away in handcuffs. Barron checked on Lily. She was still curled up in the closet, her bunny clutched tightly to her chest. "It's okay," he whispered, pulling her into his arms. "You're safe now." Tears streamed down her face as she hugged him back. "I was so scared." Barron held her tightly, his own tears threatening to fall. "I'll never let anything happen to you." Later that day, the investigator shared more grim news. "Ethan's condition is worsening. He might not make it." Barron's chest ached. "No, he has to. Lily needs him." The investigator shook his head. "You need to prepare for the possibility that he won't." Barron sat in silence, the weight of everything crashing down on him. He had fought so hard to protect Lily, but he couldn't fight this. That night, as Lily slept, Barron made a promise to himself. If Ethan didn't make it, he would do whatever it took to give Lily a life filled with love and security. But deep down, he prayed for a miracle. The next morning, Barron got a call from a hospital. Ethan had woken up. Barron rushed there with Lily, her tiny hand gripping his. When they entered the room, Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Lily," he croaked, his voice weak, but full of love. "Daddy," she cried, running to his side. Barron stood back, his heart swelling as he watched their reunion. Ethan looked at Barron, gratitude shining through his exhaustion. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to," Barron said. "Just focus on getting better." Over the next few weeks, Ethan's health improved. Barron visited often, bringing Lily's favorite snacks and reading her bedtime stories when Ethan was too tired. One day, as they sat together, Ethan said, "I've seen what you've done for my daughter. You've given her hope when I couldn't. I'll never forget that." Barron smiled, but his heart ached. He didn't want thanks. He just wanted Lily to be happy. As he left the hospital that night, he looked up at the stars, feeling a sense of peace. The storm was finally passing. Months later, Ethan was fully recovered, and Lily was back in school. Barron stayed in touch, visiting often, and making sure they never lacked anything. One evening, as they sat around Ethan's tiny kitchen table, Lily handed Barron a drawing. It was of him, Ethan, and her, holding hands under a bright sun. "You're our hero," she said, smiling brightly. Barron's eyes filled with tears. "No, Lily, you're my hero." The story of Barron's kindness spread far and wide. News outlets picked up the story, but Barron didn't care about the attention. He cared about the lives he had touched. One small act of compassion had set off a chain of events that changed everything. As Barron stood to leave, Ethan grabbed his hand. "You didn't just save us. You reminded me that there's still good in this world." Barron nodded, his heart full. As he walked out into the cool evening air, he felt lighter than he had in years. He wasn't just the son of a billionaire. He was someone who made a difference. If this story touched your heart, imagine how many lives you can touch too. Share your kindness, and let it ripple out into the world. Don't forget to hit that like button if this story moved you. Subscribe for more stories that inspire and remind us of the power of compassion. And most importantly, drop a comment below. Tell us, what's one selfless act you've done or witnessed? Let's spread positivity together. Yours,